Well, if there was any doubt that they want to restrict free speech, shooting could tame tough political rhetoric. Really, like lying about WMDs in Iraq, killing all those people on our side and the Iraqi side. They're making a full court press right now to go after our free speech. I want to come back in the next little segment. This one's only 5 minutes long, but I want to talk now with Jim Marrs. Here's the Reuters headline: shooting could tame tough political rhetoric. Protesters parade a altered photo of President Barack Obama spouting an Adolf Hitler-like mustache. A candidate for the Senate muses about gun remedies if election results don't go the right way. Members of Congress are spat on and taunted with racial epithets before casting votes for health care reform bill. Turned out that was a lie, by the way. Welcome to politics, American style. And then they go on and say, better restrict free speech. Don't put people on all this Prozac type stuff that they have to put on the insert can cause violent outburst or suicide. Don't lie about WMDs. Don't know. All of that can continue. Just shut us up. And here it is, CBS News. Obama eyeing internet ID for Americans. That's the beginning of tracking and taxing everything. Jim Marrs.
Yep. That seems to be the whole program. And, of course, the problem is it's always plausible deniability. So, for instance, at this point, we don't know whether Jared Lee Lohner, was truly just a nutcase and acted on his own, or if he was part of some sinister conspiracy, if you will. That'll all shake out, I guess, in the wash. But, of course, by the time we finally figure out which of those two choices it is, then they'll already be pushing full court for, more and more gun control, more and more internet control, less and less free speech. In fact, you know what, Alex, would you agree with me on this? I think the answer to all this is the exact opposite of what they're saying. They're saying we need to restrict free speech, we need to curtail the internet, we need to, in other words, sit down and shut up. And I say, no, it's the exact opposite. We need to reveal and lay everything out on the table.
That's right, because the path the globalists, with their social engineering, is taking us on is the design collapse of society, and out of that chaos, they then bring total tyranny as their order, as their solution. The answer is, like so many shootings that have been stopped by somebody owning a gun, I guarantee you, I have a political rally, or I'm at an event, I got somebody there packing heat. You better believe it, quietly. The answer is more guns, not less. And it was people physically taking him down that stopped it. It took the cops 5 minutes to get there, which isn't bad, but still, he probably would have killed 100 people if somebody hadn't tackled him. And what if they'd have had a gun? They could have just blown his head off a lot quicker.
That would put a stop to it right there. And the thing is, absolutely. Actually, that goes back years to when they first were having all these airline hijacking, and people were hijacking aircraft and saying, take me to Cuba. And even back then, I said, instead of shaking everybody down and putting in expensive X-ray machines, and of course, I had no idea at that time that they'd actually be making you strip down and fondling your genitals and all like that. I mean, even the Nazis didn't have the audacity to try that in a public place. But even back then, I said, why don't they just have a stewardess with a tray of little Saturday night specials, give them to everybody on the plane, and nobody would dare stand up and say, I'm taking over this plane. It's the same
And for
thing.
idiots that say it would depressurize the plane, you put what air marshals use, shearer safety slugs that won't shoot through a plane, but will liquefy somebody's insides. They have a lot of punch, but it's only right on impact.
Yeah, you're not going to bring down the airplane with that. But then that's kind of pushing it to the extreme. But you're absolutely correct. If everyone, you think of the old West, okay, and of course you think of the gunfight at OK
Stay there. Let's
Corral.
finish this talk on the other side, because Homeland Security is proposing everybody wear a bracelet with a taser in it. I'm not kidding. We'll be right back with Jim Marrs to finish up with that thought, and then we're going to get into more on mind control and more on this demon creature. We'll be right back. There are literally scores of news articles saying conspiracy theories must be banned. That means not believing the government. Scientists decades ago said they're mining the sodium fluoride out of rocks that have uranium in it don't drink the tap water. Now it's mainstream news in Texas that the state government with the feds covered it up for 2 decades. Source CBS News, Associated Press. Well, here it is. I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist. Vitriol cited as possible factor in Arizona tragedy. NPR. Here's an AP. In the aftermath of Gifford shooting, a debate over heated political rhetoric. Here's another one. Reuters. Shooting could tame tough political rhetoric. And it goes on and says, oh, somebody spit on congressmen who weren't for the health care bill. Turned out that was a hoax. You know, the point is, nobody has prior restraint on me and my free speech. I'm free. And now we've got TSA putting their hands down our pants and putting up telescreens in Walmarts and other stores saying spy on your neighbors. I mean, is every cornfield going to have security guards in it? I'm going to put on screen a Wired magazine article. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we first found this video from Homeland Security. And Homeland Security had a meeting. They're proposing it. They were looking at it. People didn't believe it. Well, here's Wired Magazine. Bad idea. The anti-hijacking safety bracelet is what it's called. It's a taser bracelet because it's funny. Jim Marrs, author, researcher, best-selling author, his latest book is The $1 Trillion Conspiracy, available at Infowars.com on the online video bookstore if you want to get it. And he said, next, it's going to be like The Running Man with Schwarzenegger. That's actually a Stephen King book, made into the film under another name. A bracelet around our neck that tasered us. And during the break, I said, Jim, you haven't heard? They're actually proposing that we all wear taser bracelets. I mean, land of the free, home of the brave. A total police state in the name of safety. There's never enough cops. There's never enough. It was citizens that stopped this guy, a woman when he was putting a new clip in, that grabbed the gun away, and 2 men that tackled him. I'm surprised they didn't break his neck. Surprisingly, I guess it's a Democratic event while there wasn't any concealed carry. I guarantee you, if that was a Republican public event, there'd have been a half dozen people right there who would have blown that guy away. The answer is more guns, not less. I mean, look at Chicago, look at New York. They have total gun bans in their city limits, and they have the highest crime rates in the country. A lot more home invasions. They don't invade your house 1/10 as much in Texas or Florida or Arizona, because you come in my house, I'm going to kill you. Jim Marrs, your comment on this?
Well, absolutely. Of course, Alex, you and I both, we're just good old Texas boys, you know. I mean, and I live out here in a kind of a rural area. Somebody comes on my property, they better be prepared to quickly announce themselves, say who they are and what their business is, because out in rural Texas, it's still totally legal to, if somebody's trespassing, you give them a warning, you can just take a pot shot at them. And we don't have any real problems out here. Our biggest crimes are burglaries. You know, they'll come and rob somebody's house when nobody's there. No, I don't recall anything here recently where anybody broke into some occupied house. They just don't do it. That's what happens when you disarm the population. Then the criminals know, well, they don't have anything really to worry about except your fist or a baseball bat. So they'll just do what they want to do. The police agencies are overtaxed. And as you said, even though the police response out in Arizona was actually pretty quick. I mean, I think they were on the scene like within 5 minutes. But still, 5 minutes, he could have killed 20, 30 more people in 5 minutes.
No kidding. In a matter of minutes, he shot 18 people and killed 6. Thank God that woman. Did you see the video of the guy who ended up getting shot in Florida over his wife getting fired from the city?
Oh, in the city council meeting?
Yeah, and the school board lady hits him in the back of the head with her bag.
Yeah. And he just stood there and looked at her like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, she should have been carrying a revolver in her purse and blown that guy away.
And that would have been the end of it.
That is the answer. Just shot him right in the back. Now, this is a short segment right now, but a longer segment's coming up. But, Jim, I want to get started on the mind control, because for people that don't know the history of this, we covered that Congress admits it, that he'd made videos about mind control. A lot of times people who are under mind control think that they're involved in mind control, or they're secretly working for the government on a secret mission. That's what he'd been telling friends. Now, again, the reason this is perfect is that just sounds like a schizophrenic. But in so many cases, it's turned out, in the case of Sirhan, if you just tuned in, folks, I have all the mainstream news articles linked in the article that Paul Joseph Watson wrote, Arizona Assassin Obsessed with Mind Control, it turns out that the L.A. police said something was going on, that it was the wrong caliber, that Sirhan hadn't fired as much. I mean, go over just the RFK assassination alone.
Okay, well, of course, Thomas Noguchi, a world-class, grade A, #1 medical examiner, testified under oath in court that the shot that killed Robert Kennedy was fired into his right mastoid, which is the bone behind your right ear, at a range of no more than 3 inches. In other words, the gun barrel was within 3 inches of the rear of his right ear. Well, of course, Sirhan never got to within about 6 feet of him, and that was in front of him. Also, Sirhan had a gun that only contained 6 rounds, and yet they were pulling bullets out of the cabinets and the door frames, ceiling tiles, all of which disappeared mysteriously enough.
And the acoustics only show less shots than were confirmed. I mean, more shots than what the government had claimed. And this was the L.A. medical examiner saying it was a fraud.
Right. Now, to step forward a little bit, there was a psychiatrist whose name escapes me at the moment, who was treating Sirhan in prison, and came out publicly and said that he exhibited hypnotic blocks. That in other words, he was a programmed assassin.
And he was admittedly programmed that day, and the lady with the polka dot dress, and the drugs in the coffee, and his arm was pinned as the shots were being fired, but it didn't matter. They filled RFK full of holes.
That's right. And then, interestingly enough, there was a man who was known as the Walking Bible because he reportedly had memorized every verse of the Bible, and he dealt in horses, and he was outside the Ambassador Hotel waiting to meet with Sirhan, who told him he was going to come into some money and wanted to buy a racehorse from him. And this fellow who was going to sell him the racehorse just happened to be related to the man who shot Governor Wallace. You see how all of this is intertwined.
And then it turns out there was an admitted CIA operative. This has now been mainstream news confirmed, who was coming in with Kennedy that day. I mean, the list just goes on and on, Jim.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And you've got guys like Allard Lowenstein was a senator. And Dennis Sweeney walks into his office and shoots him, and then just sits there smiling, waiting on the police to arrive. And it turns out that Dennis Sweeney had been undergoing psychiatric treatment by Dr. Peter Bourne, who was Jimmy Carter's White House physician, who finally got dumped because he was writing bad drug scripts. And Peter Bourne and his father, Peter Bourne Sr., all operated the mental hospital on the island of Grenada, okay, which reportedly was where they were turning out these CIA brainwashed assassins. And yet when Maurice Bishop took over and became the leader on the island of Grenada, apparently they were fearful that he was kind of a left-leaning government, and so they apparently decided, he might blow the whistle on this hospital run by the Bournes. So what happened? We invaded the island of Grenada, ostensibly to rescue students, but interestingly enough, where all the troops landed was on the opposite side of the island from where the students were, but just happened to be on the side with the mental hospital, and the only real casualties were in the mental hospital on Grenada. Oops, got rid of another CIA brainwashing operation.
And it's the same history with the shooting of Ronald Reagan, the fatal shooting of course, John Lennon. I want to talk about that some with Jim Marrs on the other side. His new book is a New York Times bestseller. He's had many. It's The $1 Trillion Conspiracy. Powerful information available at Infowars.com. And we'll be right back with Jim Marrs on the other side to look at those areas that we were just covering. I've got some tidbits I want to add dealing with Tim McVeigh. Stay with us.